Good morning, folks. It's going to take a few minutes to get everybody in the room, so while they're joining us, just want to say thank you for being here this morning. I'm watching the attendee numbers jumping up now. Glad you could make it. Welcome to Leadership Asheville's virtual Summer Buzz Breakfast. I hope you've enjoyed your breakfast, or maybe you're getting it afterward. Sorry we can't offer that to you this morning. It'll be fun when we can finally get back together and see each other. We have turned on the chat panel, and I know part of the reason people go to the Buzz Breakfast is they want to see their old friends and former alum from Leadership Asheville. You've got the chat box that you can reach out to folks that you see and say hello. We'll let you do that. But we're going to ask you to use the Q&A function if you have a question for the panelists. That way we don't have to be constantly monitoring 3 different places. So if you have a technical issue, use the chat box, send that directly to Jan Lowe. We'll try and help you out as best we can. But if you have a question, again, use the Q&A box. We'll put all questions in there. And hopefully we'll get a chance to get to some questions at the end. So as I said, this is the Leadership Asheville Summer Buzz Breakfast. We're just excited that you're here. We've got a wonderful panel for us this morning. And once again, these are co-hosted or co-presented by Dixon Hughes Goodman and the Van Winkle Law Firm. We are super thankful and grateful to our co-presenting sponsors for helping us put this on. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have these meetings in person or virtually. So we're really grateful that they're behind us and backing us up. And it's my privilege to introduce Liz Britton. She is the managing director for Dixon Hughes Goodman's Asheville office. She does all things tax planning and estate planning and does it for long-term care facilities and for family businesses. She's also a very proud Leadership Asheville 36 graduate. So let me welcome her to the stage. And Liz, I want you to picture the thunderous applause that you're now receiving as you're walking up on stage. So
Thank you, Ed. The joy of being virtual is I can just imagine all of you in front of me without having to have the fear of actually seeing you in person, but thank you. Really appreciate it. DHG is just so proud to be a continued sponsor of the Leadership Buzz series. First, I want to welcome and thank our panelists for being here today, and thank you and Jan and thank you, Ed and Jan and the Leadership Asheville planning team for putting this day together so we continue to have these community discussions virtually in this important time. I'm just so grateful and impressed how I continue to see our colleagues, clients, and community members innovate and adapt in the face of change in an uncertain future. As I know you are, I am very much looking forward to hearing from our panelists today on their perspective of where we go next. So I will turn it over to them, and thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the discussion.
thanks, Liz. I really appreciate that. And again, thanks to the support from Dixon Hughes Goodman. Really thankful for their help and support in keeping us running these programs. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our other sponsors and presenters. So we have our platinum sponsors, Explore Asheville, Parsec Financial, and Western Carolina University, and the University of North Carolina at Asheville. These folks actually purchased series tables back in the winter and all the way through the summer, and have been very gracious in allowing us to keep that. And even though we can't give them a table, so I'm very thankful for their support. And I want to thank our sustaining sponsors, TD Bank, Waste Pro, and the Van Winkle Law Firm, who continue to support all of our programming at Leadership Asheville. Our community partners who also do an in-kind donation, Blue Ridge Public Radio, Asheville FM, Crown Plaza Resort, the Gray Line Trolleys and the YMCA Blue Ridge Assembly. We thank them for their support, continuing to help us execute on our mission. And then, of course, the Buzz planning team. These guys have been fabulous, folks. Not only did they plan an original series, but they scrapped it and replanned a second series. And then that series expanded to basically 5 or 6 sessions. So they have done a lion's share of work. Jesse Fry, Michelle Keenan, Elise Lewis, and Austin Pullen. They're all graduates from Leadership Asheville Class 37. They've just been fabulous to work with and did a wonderful job pulling together this series and then, like I said, reinventing it multiple times. So thank you for all your hard work. So today we've been talking about the last 3. We kind of went back and looked at the history of Asheville and how we have handled change in the past. We last time kind of took present moment and looked at how do we find change and opportunity. And today we want to kind of look a little bit future. Now that future may be in the next month or 2 months because everything's so kind of confusing, but we have industry leaders with us today from different sectors to talk about where you're at right now. And then what are your next steps, whether that's the next 2 weeks or the next 3 months or the next 2 years, whatever you can tell us would be great in how we move forward. And the question I think that we also want to touch on it as we get there is how do we do it equitably and sustainably? And that may be a tougher question to get to, but we have Katie Cornell, the Executive Director of the Asheville Area Arts Council, Liz Whalen Tallent, the Marketing and Special Events Director at the Orange Peel. We have Kevin Westmoreland, co-owner of Corner Kitchen in Chestnut, and Lucious Wilson, the General Manager at the Wedge Brewery. All of them are here with us today and want to have this conversation. Before I jump into it, though, I got news late last night that the Mountain BizWorks is making a presentation to the Buncombe County TDA board on their grantees from their fund that they raised, the $5 million fund that they raised. And it just turns out of the 394 Buncombe businesses that are awarded grants, 4 of them, the Orange Peel, Corner Kitchen, Chestnut, and Wedge Brewing, are all represented here on our panel today. So congratulations, guys, on getting those grants. And we also, one of our community sponsors, the Gray Line Trolley Tours, was one of those grant recipients as well. I think it's a fabulous opportunity and really shows that our community is pulling together to help each other move forward in this time of crisis. So with that, let's move back to our panel and start with our first questions. And Katie, I'm gonna start with you, representing sort of the arts sector. Where are we at right now? I know, museums closed, and I'm a member of the museum, so I know we're doing some online stuff. But why don't you talk a little bit, not just about the museum, but art galleries, artists in general, where do they stand right now? And you can tell us a little bit. Sorry, you can tell us a little bit about the Asheville Area Arts Council too. So talk about your organization.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I'll start with the Arts Council. So the Asheville Area Arts Council, our mission is to keep the arts at the heart of our community. And we do that by supporting artists and arts organizations in Buncombe County. We're the 2nd oldest arts council in the state of North Carolina and one of the oldest in the United States. We were around before the State Arts Council. We were around before the National Endowment for the Arts. And so we are doing our best to support and advocate for our arts organizations here in Buncombe County. There are over 500 arts organizations in Buncombe County. 200 of them are nonprofits. And there's over 9,000 creative jobs. Our arts sector is very diverse, so we have galleries that are able to open right now. And are working in a limited capacity. But then we have our museums and our performing arts venues that are still unable to reopen. They were the first to have to close, and they're going to be the last to be able to reopen. So that's very troublesome.
Good, thank you. Yeah, anything else you want to say? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of our arts galleries have already closed. Eco Depot in the River Arts District has closed. And I just found out that Zapow Gallery on the South Slope is closing.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for that update. And Liz, let me jump to you as well. I think, you know, museums and event spaces and events in general are going to be some of the hardest or longest lasting challenge areas. I know personally getting together, I'd love to go see a concert, but I'm not sure I want to do that with, you know, 2,000 people or 120 people or something like that. So tell us again a little bit about the Orange Peel and then from the event space area, where we're at right now. Liz, you're muted.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. The Orange Peel is an 1,100 person venue in downtown Asheville, which hopefully if all of our participants are locals, you guys are aware of it. If not, I'm not doing my job very well. And we have been in business since 2002. So this October will be our 18th anniversary. We are consistently named one of the top 25 venues in the world by Pollstar, which is our industry journal. And that's based on ticket sales, annual event sales. So that's something that all of Asheville should be proud of, that we're supporting a venue that is selling enough tickets to put our little city on the map of one of the, you know, most prolific number of concerts and concert goers in the world here in Asheville. We typically do between 160 and 200 concerts a year. And we, you know, our busiest months are typically spring and fall. So summer is actually in our business a little bit of a downtime usually, but in an answer to that, we launched our outdoor concert series about 5 years ago. And as part of that, we are currently under construction on an outdoor event space and concert site downtown on Cox Avenue with our partners at Asheville Brewing Company, which was supposed to open in June, but at this point we're hoping to open just as a gathering place in August, depending on the North Carolina governor, you know, phased opening.
Right. Good. Thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was looking forward to some events down there this summer, so it's kind of a bummer that we're in the spot we're in, but that's where we are. Kevin, let me toss it over to you. The same question. Tell us about, you know, I think all of us are missing our favorite restaurants. I know I've been trying to support with takeout as many as I can, but tell us where we stand with Chestnut and Corner Kitchen.
Well, I'm missing my favorite restaurants too. So I've learned to cook a few things. I'm not the cook at our restaurant.
Yeah, me either.
Good for everybody. But I've been experimenting a little this summer, but I'm ready to go out and eat. We opened in 2004 at Corner Kitchen, in 2012 at Chestnut. We had 115 employees on March 15th. And on March 16th, we laid off about 110 of them.
Wow.
And then, of course, the governor's closed down was the next day. We are back open at Chestnut for to-go and delivery right now, and trying to keep very strict conditions in the building, and anybody that comes and goes is checked and that sort of thing. And at Corner Kitchen, we're still closed, but we had taken the opportunity to do some sort of major repairs that needed to be done there. It's an old building and it gets a lot of traffic. And so that's good. When it opens back up, it'll be fresh and clean and those sort of things. But basically, we're at about a 20th of our normal revenue right now. And we've brought back 8 people when we opened Chestnut. We can run it with 8 people right now, but normally we'd have about 55 or 60 employees on payroll. So obviously way off from where we were. And I think you'd see that that's true of most of the independent restaurants in town. Some Some leaped back in, some started and stopped, and so that's where we are.
Good, good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And Lucious, let's go over there because God knows I'm missing my favorite breweries. I'm still getting the beer, which is fine, but there's something about being able to hang out at the Wedge and outside and all those kind of things that just, just missing it. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, we pretty much end of March closed completely. So we have 2 locations in the River Arch District. We closed both locations, stopped brewing, and pretty much laid everyone off end of March, and then waited to see how funding would go. And the spring to summers are our busiest season, so we kind of, right as we were about to get out of the winter doldrums, had to close. So certainly it was a chore, and which is why we ended up laying everyone off. And then we have been back open. We did some delivery and pickup for a brief time, and now we're opening up our foundation location for outdoor seating. So we've been doing that for the last couple weeks. We've brought back five bartenders and about half of our brew staff. But yeah, we're just kind of figuring it out every day. When we opened up the outside, we were really unsure how many people would show up, certainly. And we've been lucky enough that people have shown up. A lot of our emphasis was on 2 things: making sure that we could open safely. We are not doing any service inside, so everything is outdoors. We serve outside. And then also making sure as a team, the bartenders feel safe and feel that they can come to work. And so, we probably spent about a week or 2 with meetings with bartenders, just making sure that, they felt okay. So they do, temperature checks before they come in and just like, hey, it's basically like, hey, if you feel comfortable working, work. If you don't feel comfortable working, we'll figure something out. So we've been lucky enough where business for this location has kind of mirrored a little bit, or maybe 80% of what we're doing. But unfortunately, this isn't our busier location. The studios location is kind of our breadwinner. So that's still closed, and we're trying to work on getting that open. Luckily enough with brewing, you kind of brew and then you have beer. So the operational side has slowed down, but hasn't been detrimentally affected, besides the lack of business. A lot of kegs sitting in that cooler. But yeah, we've been lucky enough, I think, to be in one of the businesses where we're not dependent on being indoors. And so I think that has made it a little easier, and just in and of itself, brewing and selling beer isn't as complicated as some. So we feel to be in a fortunate position, certainly.
Yeah, thank God it's an essential business. I know you guys in the ABC.
It is. Once you're dealing with the stress of COVID, you have to go home and have a beer, I believe.
Yeah. I know a lot of people were doing that. So what are your next steps, especially with the Wedge at Studio? And what does it look like if the county and the state continue with phase 2 and 3? What are your next steps for the next month, the next couple months, the next,
Yeah, I don't, we're, our operating owner is 73. We're not that excited to open up this year inside. I don't know that we will until next year. And we have the benefit of having a large outdoor area that we sat, and has really been our business model. And so we consider that to be a luxury, but we're also taking that luxury and basically saying, hey, let's utilize this. We feel like outdoors is safer for our staff. And so, we'd like to open up studios, but it's a matter of having enough people to want to be there and to feel safe, certainly. But, we probably won't do inside service until next year, probably next spring or something like that, if we can. And luckily enough, when we were closed, we were doing some delivery and pickup business. So which has slowed down a little bit, but we've really moved. We weren't really a big package company, but we added We now canned our wit beer and our Pilsner, so we're canning more beer than we used to can. And so we're also preparing for a delivery pickup system. Obviously the more business we do, the more staff we can bring back. But even if it goes backwards, we're prepared for that as well.
Good, good. And I know the outdoor space has been really wonderful. I know just personally, I feel more comfortable if I could go to a place and sit outside because I know I can keep distant and away from other people. Kevin, I know the city has just you kind of opened up parklets, using parking spaces and allowing for more outdoor if you can at a restaurant. But I know you're limited by how much parking space you have in front of your restaurant. What are your next steps moving forward?
Well, we're looking at the, am I unmuted? Yeah. We're looking at the parklets and trying to figure out if we can use those and make them safe for our guests, because our parklet would be basically out in the street on Biltmore Avenue.
Right.
100% sure I'd want to sit there, but we'll see how that goes and what we can do to make that useful. We're using the sidewalk, which the city's been great about. They've made spaces for pickup and to go now in front of our restaurant, which happened just really overnight. We walked in one day and they'd changed the signs and taken the meter, actually literally taken the meters away, which was great. So that's been helpful. We got PPP loans for both restaurants. We got EIDL loans for both restaurants. We got some grants, but for restaurants and probably for a lot of businesses, our staff, if they're at the high end of unemployment in North Carolina and they're getting the federal CARES, additional funds, they're at something like $49,400 a year equivalent. And so it's hard for me to bring people back. Like when we opened up the to-go business with 8 people, everybody's making that or above, which is not the kind of business plan you would take to a bank, because they would go, that's not going to work, because it's not going to work
Right.
forever. But we wanted those people back. These were people we want to, be the core people that stay with us if possible. So we're running this as an experiment, and until the PPP funds can be sort of used better. We're not going to open up in any huge ways indoors until probably after July. When we do that, it's going to be just as much as makes sense for the guests and our staff, and to ideally break even. At this point, we're trying to break even until next spring or summer. I think we have, it's very strange. We have probably as much money as we've ever had in the bank. We have more money than we've ever had in the bank because of these loans and the grants. But we have to be very careful how we spend it. We have to sort of sliver back in staffing, because in a restaurant, you can get, staffing can sort of take over, and then all of a sudden you're completely unprofitable. So even with the PPP loans, we don't want to wake up next May and have, a huge amount of extra debt to add to the debt we already had, so that most restaurants have. So the goal is to continue to go in delivery, grow that as best we can, open up in a way that's safe, assuming an outbreak doesn't happen and the governor doesn't maybe shut everybody back down again. And that's a worry. So, and we've seen restaurants around the country open up. Some states obviously are opening up at different stages than we are. They open up, somebody gets sick, or 2 or 3 people get sick in the restaurant. They have to close again. They disinfect the restaurant. They bring some of those people back. They close again because somebody gets sick. And it's one of those things where, how many times can you open and close and people still support you? It's a little bit of a strange thing. So we're going to do it in a hopefully thoughtful way over the next couple of months. By August, we will know more, and everybody will know more. And so we expect to be open at about half capacity, or maybe a little less in August.
And are you changing physical? Like, I know some places are pulling tables out. Certainly at the university, as they get ready to open for students in August, they have reconfigured classrooms so people are socially distanced when they're meeting in person. How do you do that in a restaurant?
Well, you could pull tables. We're not going to pull tables. We're going to, block certain tables and do it in a way that ideally is attractive and kind of like, oh, that's supposed to be that way, instead of having a sign on it that says you can't sit here. So that's our goal. We have some outside seating at Corner Kitchen, which is great. But yeah, we at Corner Kitchen, we normally seat about 85. We'll plan to have seating in the 40s or so. And that's kind of maximum seating. Obviously, Four Tops, you'll have 2 people there. So it might be even half of that.
Right.
Chestnut, it's about 60 instead of 120 or so. So it'll look the same when you come in, but you'll be distanced in a way that ideally is good, good for everybody in terms of being safe.
Yeah. Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. And Liz, how about for you? Obviously, the outdoor space would be great because I think people would feel more comfortable going to a venue outside. But what's the plan for moving forward?
Sure. So we have done some, we've done some preliminary work in the orange peel to create like plexiglass gridding at the bar that would allow for more space if we are able to open inside. But frankly, I think when you're an indoor business that relies on large gatherings, as I think you said, Ed, and some of the other speakers have mentioned, that's kind of the worst possible industry to be in during a contagious pandemic. And so, I don't know, even if the governor were to say by Friday, okay, phase 3 will include allowing entertainment venues to open at 50% capacity, you're not going to be seeing the orange peel doing that anytime soon, just because it's just not responsible. And there's no way to, even if we had 500 people in the club, if you've been to a show that has 500 people, you still are not feeling like, wow, there's nobody in here, I'm in here alone. And plus, we're paying a lot of attention to the science, and as has been mentioned by others, being outside is just a much better scenario for avoiding getting sick. And so we're just very aware of all of that. I think what we're doing now is kind of just trying to guard our resources to make it until 2021, frankly. I do think that we'll do, some outdoor events at our new space on Cox Avenue. We're working with some other partners on other possible outdoor events that we can put on, drive-in type events, to be more specific. We do have a streaming series that's going on now that we do broadcast from inside the orange peel on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights with local bands. That is not a moneymaker per se. It's a good way to, get some work for our folks and to allow local artists to reach their fans, and there's a donation-based paying platform. So there is a way for people to fund that a little bit, but it doesn't really pay for itself. So that's fairly limited. I think, as we get into the fall, you may see us do some seated distance events inside the venue if we can find artists that will work with us to do that in a way that is, at least break even, if not profitable. But right now, we're really grateful to have received the TDA's grant and very grateful to them for having put forth that program. Our experience with the EIDL loan has been fairly ridiculous. We received 1% of what we asked for, which may have been a clerical error, we don't know, but that didn't end up, being a life raft much for us. We did receive a PPP, and I'm encouraged by the changes that they made to that program to allow industries like ours to go through the end of the year to use the money. But as I'm sure Kevin and I could talk about for a long time, the original plan and even this new revision, that is just not a great loan program for shuttered industries, or mostly shuttered industries, because it requires that you spend the majority of it on payroll. And as Kevin mentioned, that just doesn't make sense when your employees are currently making, you know, decent money on unemployment. And for us in particular, if we were to bring everyone back and spend the 8 weeks of money that we received from the PPP, we would just end up having to lay them off again, because we know that the orange peel is not going to be back opening at full steam, you know, probably on December 31st, unless there's a vaccine that's been widely distributed by then. So I know I've talked a long time. I personally, and a lot of our management staff, have been working really closely with NEVA, which is our national organization that's formed. It's the National Independent Venue Association. And basically, it's a lobbying group and just a way for us all to get connected. We've never really had any kind of formal coalition before amongst independent venues. And we're really pushing elected leaders right now to consider an alternative to the PPP called the Restart program. I know the restaurant industry has signed on to that as well, but basically it's an extended loan program. It's just a much better design for industries like ours to survive this, because, you know, we know that we're in the position to kind of just grit our teeth and try to make it through for 9 months, 12 months, you know.
Yeah, and I hope you're in the have the financial wherewithal to do that, because losing the orange peel would be a huge loss to our community. But you're absolutely right. I think originally, I assume good intent, and I think legislators were trying to rush something out to make sure that we could keep businesses afloat with the PPP and the EDIL. But to your point, I think they cut it down to a 2-year repayment plan, which would make absolutely no sense for a restaurant or a event space. And you're right, you can't keep paying people when you're not. Even if you had opened your restaurant, Kevin, nobody would have gone in there. And so
Right.
I don't know how they made it. So it's good that they extended it a little bit, but what else do they need to do? And Kevin, jump in as well. What else needs to happen? Liz, I'm glad to hear that your independent event folks are forming a louder voice for policy change. Kevin, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think the changes made it actually usable. I mean, we've got 24 weeks, we've got 5-year payback, we've got 60-40 payroll and against other costs. And I think if you can prove that you can't reopen, and again, it seems to change every week, so I have to read what it says today.
Right.
But if you can prove that you can't reopen at full capacity, then whatever you've spent could conceivably all be forgiven. Before it was a fraction of what you spent if it wasn't fully staffed. I think they understood. I agree. They were trying to do something. They got the money out quickly. I appreciate that. And now they've kind of taken the next steps, which makes it more useful. Hopefully the 24 weeks means we can bring most of our people back. I hope nobody thinks that none of us want to bring our people back. We want all of our people back, but we have to be in business to bring them back. And that's the point. And so this is a great step. And for restaurants, there's a huge fund that's being asked for. I'm not sure that I have a lot of hope that it'll happen. It's a $120 billion grant fund, but it'll be nationwide. And it's been in the works, but there's a little bit of pushback now from a lot of folks in Washington about throwing a lot more money at this. But we'll see. But the idle money, the EIDL money, if they could have ramped that particular program up sooner and funded it with more money, that would have been the best one, because it's 30-year payback, 3.5% fixed.
Right.
You can use it for whatever you need to use it for, as long as it's business related, basically.
Right.
That would have been the right place to put the funds, but it didn't happen.
And I know there's lots of conversations around, well, you know, big businesses got a lot of that funding and the independent businesses didn't. And I don't want to get into that piece now, but, you know, we could talk about that. Hopefully they'll continue to tweak it, make it work.
Yeah.
Katie, I do want to move back to you because, you know, all of these folks have at least a tinge of outdoor space or the possibility of using outdoor space. You can't really do outdoor in a museum or in an art. I mean, you can take some art to the outside, but it's so weather dependent. I, you know, don't want to hang some really nice artwork out on the street corner. What are you thinking? What are your folks doing?
We are actually in discussions with the city about how to use the open space initiative to support our arts organizations. So that is happening. So that would look like in these areas where they have road closures, maybe temporary stages for performances, better utilizing our parks, particularly like Hazel Robbins Amphitheater, using the stage in Pack Square, things like that, and adding temporary vendor stalls for artists, ways to allow better use of outdoor spaces to help arts organizations. As Liz, you know, kind of hinted, a lot of our arts organizations have moved to doing virtual events just to keep connected, but there's not really a good way to monetize that. So it's a lot of work that's not really helping with overhead. So what a lot of our arts organizations have done is everything they can to reduce their overhead. I mean, that's really all we can do right now is get rid of as many expenses as possible and kind of go into hibernation mode. I think most of our performing arts organizations are not planning to do performances until next year. So if we could, you know, find a way to use these open spaces and get them, give them the ability to do something before that, it would be extremely helpful.
You know, and that brings up even a second point to it, that reducing the overhead is key. I get that, because we want all these to stay in business, and I know unfortunately we're probably going to lose more than we care to. But when you talk about the performing arts places staying in business, what about the performers? And you know, I know we're reducing overhead, and I don't know how long unemployment and the programs that they've added to unemployment that have helped are going to be in there. What do performers do? What do artists?
Well, you know, for a long time, you know, most of our performers are contract based. And so unemployment was not an available option for a long time. And then when it did become an option, it took forever for the guidelines to come down and for it to be open. So it's been an incredibly frustrating process. And there's a lot of arts recovery funds, but they're all just swamped with requests. So it's difficult. I'm not really sure there is a good answer right now. So the North Carolina Arts Council is revising their grant programs in the next year to be of more support for both of our nonprofit arts organizations and artists. There's actually a bill in the House and Senate right now that would give an extra $3 million to the North Carolina Arts Council for these recovery efforts. So we're kind of waiting on the state budget to pass to find out how these grant programs are going to be adapted. But we do know that there will be some relief funding coming, at least for our nonprofit arts organizations and for local artists. But again, the need greatly exceeds, you know, what we're going to get. So it's yet to be seen how helpful it's going to be.
Yeah, it's a serious challenge. You know, you think about why our state can't get a budget passed. And again, it just highlights how critical November's election is for people to get out and vote. So that was going to be one of my questions, is what can we as community leaders and the people on this webinar who are listening, what can we be doing to help support, to help keep businesses afloat? We've got a number of questions that are coming in, several of them around, you know, can the areas around Wall Street or the ones in front of corner kitchen. There was one that was actually, can the whole street be blocked off in front of corner kitchen and Wellbred and make it used for cafe seating? Is that even an option or a possibility? But, other ones, the area around Wall Street, or, to make it an atmosphere with music and street performers. Other cities may be doing this.
So I'll just jump in. So part of the city's open space initiative does call for street closures, and I think it's going to be 5 to 6 different areas. So they started it last Friday with the block area, Market Street and Eagle Street. And the next up is Wall Street and the area around Banks and Buxton and the South Slope. So we should be seeing more of these spaces becoming available for that kind of thing.
Good, and I'm curious too, especially Lucious, because you have the outdoor space there. Who's actually coming right now? Can you tell whether they're locals or whether they're tourists? What's the mix?
Yeah, early week we get a lot of locals, and then honestly, as tourism comes in, the locals come out less. I am happy to live in Asheville, I just feel like most people from Asheville are kind of respecting this process as much as they can for the most part. And it's not to say that everyone not from Asheville isn't respecting it. It's just say that there's a noticeable difference in the local community and the non-local community in terms of wearing masks and 6 foot of spacing and all of that, and just having to manage it. We find, when it is our regular community, we don't have to manage much. And when it isn't our regular community, we have to manage more. And it's not to say that that's part of it. Some of it is you go on a trip, like we're right on the river. So you go on a trip, you invite how many people to go on this trip, and you come off the river, and you're obviously drinking. So that is going to loosen you up socially. And then say, well, but you have to sit only six people at a time and make sure you're spaced. And so, the environment itself is challenging. But I will say that people have respected it, whether regulars, whether locals or tourists, they kind of have respected the social distancing. But certainly we have noticed where, regulars will come in Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday and Sunday will be a crowd that we're not as familiar with.
Yeah. Anybody else? Others want to chime in on what you're seeing? Is it locals? Is it tourists? Combination of the two?
Well, we're not open, but I will say that as we've been down on our Cox Avenue site and working on getting that open and speaking to Mike and Corey and the rest of the team at Asheville Brewing, I know I have heard from them that they are seeing predominantly tourists coming into their newly opened patios. They just started opening the patio, and being next door to Wicked Weed here at the Peel, I'm sure folks have noticed that there's, a line down the sidewalk. And I think, again, my sense is that those folks are from out of town as well, because I don't see a lot of mask wearing. And I think locals have been pretty diligent about wearing masks, at least in my circles.
Good, thanks. Katie, you had mentioned that the city's plan Wall Street area was next in closing. We had a question that came in that I think we need to keep in mind that some of the streets proposed for closing also serve other businesses that rely on access. This person's services has a service business on Wall Street, and the only handicapped access which they need is on that street. So how do we keep it open? It's also a loading zone for pickup and delivery. So I think that's a great question. We don't want to hurt some and protect others. Do you know
and this
plan for that?
Yeah, the city is very aware of that. So these are temporary closures. So it would be like a day. It would be closed down for a day. And then the idea, I believe, is to move it around. And so there would just be like one day a week, the block is closed down, one day a week, Wall Street is closed down, to allow for more outdoor use space, but it wouldn't be closing it down all of the time.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And we had a question that was actually sent in advance that I really want to shout out to my friend Ellen for doing that. I really appreciate it. Does Asheville have a plan to tackle the changes coming to the small businesses closing? You know, so the ones that we do lose and their spaces are open on Wall Street and the Grove Arcade and other places downtown, how do we keep it local? You know, how do we work to make sure that national retailers don't come in and take up these vacancies? Any ideas or plans? You guys know of anything in the works or suggestions?
This is something we talk about at the Asheville Independent Restaurant meetings. I don't know, every other meeting maybe when I was on the board, and it's tough because somebody that owns a space is going to try to get the most out of that space dollar-wise that they can. It's part of sort of our economy. But what we've seen is, for instance, where I was right across from Chestnut. Now I can't. It's escaping me. It was Doc Chay's, where Doc Chay's was. When they closed, the lease went fairly high for the square footage. A place went in there. Now they're selling and been trying to sell their business. I mean, it was the kind of place where the restaurateurs that I know, looked at it and went, "You can't make a business there because you can't charge $25 for a bowl of noodles or whatever it might be that you're making."
Right.
It would have to be the perfect business and I think hopefully the people that own the spaces will see that. I mean, yeah, you could bring in a national chain and they might pay more per square foot, but Asheville's kind of a unique. There are lots of small spaces, medium-sized spaces with no hoods. There's a lot of different things. Retail is a little bit easier, I suppose, because you need more of a box than you do specialized equipment like we do. But this is a question that worries me as a Asheville native. I love the diversity of business that we have in the city, and it to me is one of the biggest issues that we're going to have with the fact that real estate is so valuable and people need to get a certain rent out of a space. And a small art gallery may not be able to afford that spot, but that may be just what would be the right thing for the city or the street. So this is a tough one, and I don't know, without the city stepping in some way to subsidize the landlord, which is probably not something many of us believe in, or even think could happen.
Well,
I don't know what you do.
Well, and given the revenue loss that the city's now dealing with, I mean, they're in a kind of a world of hurt as well.
Right.
Sales tax are down, property. There was talk. It's really fascinating how different we are in just 2 months. Because before COVID, I know there had been talk or push toward potentially raising property tax rates, trying to get more funds in for the city, and now it's completely austerity wise. Their sales revenue is down so much. And you're right. I don't know that the city could actually justify or even have the funds to subsidize landlords. So you're right. It's a question that I think we're just going to have to continue to wrestle with. And I don't know if there is a good answer.
I mean, one thing, this is, a very micro level suggestion, but I will just say, if you are in an industry that is doing well, if you are, employed in some sector that is unaffected by COVID, this is a time to really support local. Do not buy from chains. Do not, go out of your way to support your local restaurants and breweries and galleries and retail, because I think the reality is, in a city like Asheville, you are going to see a lot of closures downtown. I mean, we are. And unfortunately, I think the only people that are going to have the money once this is all said and done to come in and fill those spaces are going to be a lot of corporations. So to avoid that as much as possible, I think one thing everyone can do is really, make it one of your charitable giving activities right now to buy local, to go to brands that you appreciate locally and see, do they have a GoFundMe? Do they have a Venmo account? Do they have a way you can buy a gift certificate from them? Because you may, that really could be the thing that makes the difference in some of these places hanging on through this. So I think that's one thing locals can do, because I think that Ed is right. The city is not in a position financially to subsidize all of these local companies right now, but who can help keep it afloat are patrons.
And I just want to add, also making donations to your nonprofit cultural institutions in downtown that can't be open right now is very important to ensure that we keep nonprofits in downtown.
One of the things I saw, we went to Charleston and unfortunately didn't get to eat out anywhere. It's very confusing right now in Charleston, but one of the things that they had on some of the to-go tickets was there's a community fund. It's a community fund for local businesses. And at the bottom of the ticket, it's, I think we had like a $60 to-go order or something. And it was about $2. And it said, if, you know, it added it on automatically. You could uncheck it and take it off, but we didn't because we understood there must be a community fund that's for independent businesses in Charleston, and this all goes into a pool. And I'm imagining, I didn't look it up, but I'm going to look it up later. I'm imagining you can apply for funds from that pool. And I know there are certain things going on in Asheville, small, different initiatives, but something like that where once all the restaurants are back open, for instance, we could put that at the bottom of our checks. It starts adding up, and that's a way we can sort of help our own community. And we need to, we're going to have to.
It's a great idea. We should talk to Franzi about that.
Exactly. She'd be on board, I'm certain.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And, it's kind of like the hotels getting together saying, yeah, we'll add an occupancy tax and tax ourselves to create the TDA fund. It sounds like Asheville independent restaurants could do the same thing and create an independent restaurant fund, which would be great.
I'll send it to Jane. I'll send that to Jane.
Yeah, send it to Jane. And just to clarify, because Dana Frankel is listening, so thanks, Dana, for being here. I appreciate it. She wanted to make sure that shared streets are not to be full closures. There will still be vehicle access. The streets become pedestrian priority areas. So handicap parking, deliveries, all of those will still be maintained on the shared streets. And there's a link that I'll put in the chat box for everybody for Asheville Government Shared Space that gives you more information on that. So Dana, thanks for being here and being in the know. I appreciate it. Good. You guys keep questions. The questions are continuing to come in. I really appreciate it. Keep them coming. Kind of the follow-up to that national retailers piece was this: there may be the perception that national retailers can follow safety and cleanliness protocols better. I'm hearing from you guys, at least, that, and I think, Lucious, to what you were saying, Ashevilleans seem to be taking it much more seriously in the few places that I have traveled. I have family down in Georgia. My mom just turned 90 yesterday, and I did go sit on the back patio and stay 10 feet away from her, but I needed to say happy birthday in person. And of course, gas stations and grocery stores that we stopped at, that we had to, nobody was wearing masks. I think I saw 2 people the whole time. So it is a very different culture outside of Asheville. And I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know if that's something that is going to help us or not. What do you think?
I mean, I think the push for mask wearing is it's what we can do. And if you think about 3 things, like, we can physically stay 6 feet away from each other. We can physically wear masks, and it's that simple. And I think, figuring out a way to put that message out there that really it is about community, and it's about all of us just want to make it till 2021. It's what everyone says. And it's this simple step that allows us to get to that place. And I don't know how to get the message out. I can't say. I'm not the social media guy, but a way. And I think, in the businesses that I go to are doing it right, and they're putting the signs up. And how do you still, I don't know, like, whatever ad funds that the TDA has, like, putting that on the mask wearing. It seems to be the one simple, easy way to slow everything down and to at least know that you care. You know, I think some of it is a matter of like, hey, wear a mask because you care. I don't know, like just put that area, like it's not necessarily about you, it's about kind of everyone else. And every time you're not wearing a mask, it sort of shows how you feel about everyone else, and how do we put that energy out there that, you know, it's just, we all need to take care of each other, like remind it, like, you know, bring an extra mask, whatever it is. And just the 6 foot of spacing, you know, are things that time and again, the science is saying that there are effective. How do we just really commit to that, you know, as a community, even with tourists coming in? It's like, look, just can you respect our environment and go ahead and play the way that we're playing this in that.
Yeah, and Jane asked, can the city of Asheville mandate legally mask wearing within the city limit to get our visitors to join our community? I don't know the answer to that. That may need to come from the governor's office and mandating mask wearing. And I know they're thinking about that. And quite honestly, I would hate to be in their shoes right now. I know Mandy Cohen and the governor are faced with a real challenge between wanting to reignite the economy, and the numbers in North Carolina are not looking good. They are actually going in the wrong direction. And I know that's not good news for you guys who are in businesses and independent restaurants and arts and event space. It's not good for me in a nonprofit who one of our biggest our biggest fundraising events is the Buzz Breakfast. Well, we're not doing them this year. So these were all free and open to the public. So it has been a real strain. And it's going to be a really hard call for anybody, governor, health council, health directors, whatever, to say, wait, we've gone too far, we've got to come back, or we've got to go back to phase 1, because I know how damaging that might be to you and where you're at in your business. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, we're expecting it.
That they go back a phase?
Yeah, we're especially in the wintertime. I mean, we feel like we can make it through October, but we feel like, you know, November, December, January, and February, if we're able to stay open at what we're doing now, it would be a pretty big surprise. We're pushing to kind of get our studios location open more so that we can just cover, like even just close, January and February and kind of move on. It seems, and I don't know how we get other businesses open, with the legislation, but it seems like if there's a way, because I know, I've got a friend who runs a Pilates studio, and it seems at random that you can go into some businesses and you can't. I don't know if there's a way to get some businesses open so that they can do something, but keep the restrictions, as opposed to like phase 3 has to be a free for all. Can we keep tighter restrictions, but let some of these businesses open with restrictions, and so that they can survive, because I think that's part of it is it somewhat seems at random what can open and what can't open. Luckily, as a brewery, we were able to open, but how do we get some of these other businesses open and just say, hey, this is what you have to do to be safe, but allow them the opportunity to do something.
Yeah, it's interesting. My colleague Randy Bowman, who's on, said, maybe we can go to a phase 2.5. And Governor Cooper is scheduled to make an announcement this afternoon at 3. So we may know more even in just a couple of hours. And I think the issue about legally mandating, even if it comes from the state level, the issue isn't so much, Lucious, as you pointed out, the mandate, it's the enforcement.
Right.
Right.
And how do you go about enforcing everybody wearing it? So, I know the TDA came out with the guidelines and the promise and a lot of signage about that, so local businesses could put up signs about wearing masks, washing hands, keeping 6 feet, distance and stuff, which is great. But it is the enforcement piece, and I know that's always been the question: who has to enforce it? You, the store owner, you, the general manager, or who?
Right. Are you calling the police, which in this current moment is like a crazy, you know,
Right, which is
a little counterintuitive to where, you know, many of us hope we go. And I don't know, I haven't researched what other cities that are mandating masks have done. I mean, I know like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, it was all over that Montgomery County is mandating masks, but it wasn't enforceable. Obviously, like it was just a guideline. And I see in the news these other cities who are in states where the governor may be less careful than ours are saying, well, to protect our city, we are going to mandate masks in this city. And it seems like they are going to have the police coming in to enforce that, because unfortunately there is such a huge, I mean, I'm sure everyone here has people in their own personal circle, I do, who don't want to wear a mask for some reason. You know, I mean, nobody that in my family or close group of friends, but certainly people that I'm friends with on Facebook who are just, you know, adamant that no one can make them wear a mask, which seems, you know, I don't want to get too controversial in this panel, but it feels really selfish to me to say, what, come on, you're doing it to protect others around you. But I think that's the unfortunate reality, is that there's some not insignificant portion of Americans who won't do it unless it's enforced, which, you know, I don't know the way around that.
Well, what I've seen, because we were wondering about how we would handle it, because we're in the hospitality business. We're supposed to be hospitable, right? And so what I talked to a friend that runs a restaurant, and his point was, if you don't have a mask on, you can't come in the restaurant. I said, well, do you provide masks for them? He goes, nope. He said, there are stores on the block that have, you know, masks. There's a retail store across the street that sells them, and they send them there. And so we put up signs that said that if you don't have a mask on, you can't come in the restaurant. And that's tough, but it's not really. If all the restaurants, for instance, or all the restaurants in retail that were independent said you can't come in without masks, then the issue would not be that this city is, you know, it's the wills and won'ts. It's that everybody in Asheville says you have to have a mask.
Right.
And then there would be no need for enforcement, because you just couldn't go in anywhere.
Right.
You would have to have the mask on. But the first word in independent businesses is independent. And some people, they won't require it, and that's okay. That's okay. But I think if we can get the more businesses that say you can't come in without a mask, then I don't think it'll stop people from coming to Asheville. I would hope it would just start people bringing masks with them when they come to Asheville.
And I think Lucious could probably speak to this, because I know you're having a lot of tourists outside on the weekends, but my perception is that one of the problems is you can say that, but then once people get onto your property, if they are refusing to follow the guidelines, I mean, that's something we've talked a lot about internally, is like how much, you know.
I mean, Asheville itself and Asheville locals are great because they have a presence that carries over to tourists. And so I think we're lucky to have a lot of regulars that come in, and so they kind of set the tone. We have a fair amount of signage, and we have someone who's basically outside, and all their job is to talk to people and make sure everyone's going the right way. We also hand out masks, so we are going through probably about 60 to 70 disposable masks a week. Because in order to go inside, you have to wear a mask for us. And so if they're not wearing a mask, we will give you a mask. Same thing with ordering beer. In order to get a beer, you have to wear a mask, but we have them available to you. And we really haven't had much fight back on it. Certainly, people have honored that, certainly. But yeah, once you for us, it's more size of parties and people coming off the river is really the biggest thing. Is they're coming off the river, 20 deep, and we're just like, no. I don't know why you decided to go floating with 20 of your best friends, but maybe you could have just picked 6 to 10 and we'd have been all right.
So what do you do in that scenario? Are you telling them?
We only had one time where it was they wanted to move tables, and so we had the person who was outside engage them and said, hey, can you not? And so they were fine. They ended up being fine. We had to go them a couple times. And then we had all of our signage was around our perimeters and walking up. And so the next day we put all the signage on the actual tables. with the 6 feet of per person. So we had it posted, but we made sure to just make it even more accessible. Like, please don't touch this table. And since we've done that, it hasn't been as much of an issue, certainly. People, no one has been mean. We haven't had any mean customers or anyone who's completely fought it. I think some people just walk away, whether it's locals who just feel uncomfortable being outside with people, or some tourists, I think, just choose not to come. But yeah, we haven't received any verbal animosity, certainly.
I'll just jump in and say, with our local arts galleries, the locals are very much following the guidelines from what I understand, but there has been some problems with tourists. And, many of the galleries are selling or providing masks. I'm also part of the Western Arts Agencies of North Carolina. So that's a group of 20 Arts Council directors from across the Western region. And we've had a lot of talks about this. I mean, there's a lot of tension around this mask. It's definitely become kind of a political issue. And as the arts councils are starting to reopen their galleries, they're down to, 1 to 2 staff members. And when you have someone come in and high tension, immediately around trying to enforce this mask, it's kind of scary. So we've had several conversations in our group about, how to de-escalate the situation. We have a lot of local buy-in, but in these smaller towns, they don't. It's definitely really an interesting and kind of complicated issue, added on to the frustrating of trying to reopen.
And I've noticed that as well. Like I said, when I was traveling down to Georgia, the pressure to wear a mask, and you're right, the pickup and deliveries that I've done here, everybody seems to have a mask on. And so getting out of the car and putting on the mask before going into the grocery store or to a pickup at a restaurant has not been an issue for me. And actually it's the other way, because I see so many people with masks, I feel the pressure to put mine on. Whereas it was just the opposite at gas stations and on the way down to Atlanta, where nobody was wearing a mask and I was putting mine on and really felt out of place. I just had to go in and use the bathroom, and it was like, well, I'm doing this really for their health as well as my own. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. But yeah, it was really that the social pressure was almost reversed because there were so many people not wearing a mask. So I think you're right. If we can model that and get more people here wearing the mask when they're in the museum, when they're outdoors in the outdoor space or in the restaurant, there may be more pressure for people to actually put one on. It is. It's tough that it's become a political issue. It's really sad because it's about caring. It's about caring for your fellow human beings and making sure.
And I also think this might sound a little cynical, but my sister lives in New York, in the city, and she said literally every single person wears a mask at all times. And if you don't, then everyone turns and stares at you. You're shunned by passerbys because they're just not messing around in New York after what they've been through. And I do think that as hotspots develop in other parts of the country, I do wonder that some of this, intransigence about mask wearing won't just kind of naturally be taken care of once you feel like, oh, this is a real thing and this is affecting my community. Now I actually know someone, you know what I'm saying? I think having COVID reach communities that were previously not really experiencing and therefore had the luxury of saying like, I'm not gonna wear a mask, it's my right. Well, I think if you felt truly afraid that there was a lot of cases in your community, you'd see a lot more people feeling like, well, I want to wear my mask for my own protection too. So I do think maybe it's just a natural phenomenon of, people don't want to take a step until they feel like they are personally connected to what's happening.
Unfortunately, but yeah, that's that independent you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is certainly characteristic of our nation. So, be independent. Good. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So let's talk 2021. I know many of you said we're just trying to hang on and hang in until 2021. And nobody knows, of course, and there's nothing magical about January 2021 that anything might be different, but let's hope it is. And if it is, and we are, God willing, there's a vaccine or we found something that's made it less threatening to people, how do we reopen Asheville in a way that's sustainable and equitable for all of Asheville? What do we need to be thinking about? What can community people be doing? What can leadership be doing? What do you think?
Well, this is not necessarily about businesses per se, but I personally am very thinking a lot about this issue, and I'm sure many people watching who are parents are thinking about this too, is what happens with our school system. Because I feel like in order for businesses to be back up and running productively, we need some kind of answer for schools. I have 3 small children who haven't been in school since March and aren't going to camp this summer. And I'm at work right now, but I think I've come into the office 5 times in the last 3 months because I don't have any childcare. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem for all workers. I feel concerned about it locally, especially because our school systems serve as childcare and healthy meal access and all kinds of things for a lot of our youth. And I'm interested to hear how, I don't have the answer, but I do feel like coming up with some solution where there is some kind of safe childcare provided to folks in the community through school. I don't know whether permanent distance learning is, to me, that doesn't feel conducive to being able to have things sustainably open back up. And it also doesn't feel equitable to me because I feel like there are parents who, have to go to work. They're an essential, they work in grocery stores or they work in the hospital. And I don't know what the answer will be if there's no school for their kids.
Good point. Thanks. Others?
I share that, certainly. I second that. And I think, one of the discussions was on, downtown and corporate creations coming in. I think one of the things that's what has been cool about Asheville developing is it's developing these neighborhoods. And I think if you can have, basically city centers in all neighborhoods, whether it's West Asheville or North Asheville or Oakley or whatever, you've got, sort of thriving businesses in the neighborhoods. It not only it helps those neighborhoods and continues to have Asheville be a walkable city, but that same thing goes from not having to drive somewhere. If you can work within walking distance of where you live, that makes things a lot more equitable per se than you have to always go to one particular area. So I think if we're able, if we can continue the trend of the community business, I think it helps local businesses thrive because the rental rates or the lease rates in some of the distant neighborhoods are, and just watching those lease rates, some of the lease rates in town are pretty crazy, no matter where you are. And just if there's a way to kind of have, pocketed neighborhoods where your lease rates aren't so high, it gives, people an opportunity to try it out, maybe become a destination spot, certainly.
Okay, good.
I think for us, one of the things that's kind of gone away, because we've always been involved with local nonprofits, and they tend to have events that are different times of the year. Some are in the summer. Our nonprofits we've worked with tend to be those that deal with food insecurity or children. We're a restaurant, we do food. We're interested in helping people that don't have access to food. And my dad was an orphan, so it's just one of those things I grew up with. So we tend to help folks that help kids that are in need. And thinking about sort of our most recent, the protests and our most recent sort of societal questioning, we're sitting here as a business questioning how do we go forward again with our nonprofit efforts, and how do we do that in a way that addresses the communities that are most at need? Because that may not have changed. There still may be the communities that are at need may have been in need a year ago or 10 years ago, but they weren't on our radar. So communities are on our radar now that weren't. Joe and I both understand. I mean, we understand the privilege we were born with and the privilege that we have grown up with, and how do we sort of coincide what we've always done with more people that have not had that privilege, that weren't born with that privilege, is the best way to put it. And we're really trying to listen and be part of whatever conversations help steer us to the right place to do the best we can with what will probably be less money over the next year and a half or so, and effort that we can definitely money. We can donate effort. We can't donate money if we don't have money, and that's a problem for all the nonprofits. But it's just something we're really thinking about, because it's part of our culture.
Yeah, I would say, right now, a lot of our arts organizations don't have the ability to do that much, but we're all listening, and we're trying to figure out, how we can use this time where we're all scaled back so that when we are able to ramp back up, we can do it in a more equitable fashion. So, really taking a hard look of what we have been doing. And trying to address some systematic issues. I'll say I'm working with the North Carolina Arts Council right now. We're looking very closely at all the grant programs and how to address inequities within the application and disbursement of grant funds, which is great because the money trickles down, and we can't make too many systematic changes unless the state does. But I do think there are some great opportunities for change right now.
And I think each of us who is involved on nonprofit boards or has a company, one thing we can be doing, even though it's true we don't have financial resources right now, we can be meeting with our teams and coming up with ways to make sure our hiring is diverse, making sure we're advancing people of color, making sure we have diverse boards. And I know I've been a part of a lot of companies and a lot of boards in Asheville that are not diverse at all. And I think that's a big problem here. And I think that it needs to be a top of mind priority for all of us. And that's something we've been talking about, internally in the Orange Peel and in our businesses, is that that's part of inherent bias. If you have a company that happens to be run by all white people, then you end up tending to reflect that kind of thing in your management. And, that is something that all companies and all boards need to do a better job with. And that will, really help the problem. You need diverse voices in leadership. And so I think that's something that we are all responsible for making sure that we do a better job with.
Yeah, I agree. And I know a lot of folks in the past, we put a lot of pressure on religious institutions to be the one who step forward and call for change, particularly moral change or justice. And that move toward government and government entities to push forward on that. Quite honestly, I believe business is going to be the one that can actually make the biggest change. No offense, but I think government is so bureaucratic and so polarized at the moment that business has a better chance of making social change right now. And I know what most of you are doing and how much effort you guys put into the community. So I really appreciate that. I know Kevin and Joe have done lots of work with communities, with groups within our community, likewise with everyone else on the panel. So I want to thank you for that. Just check before I start closing us out. Are there any other questions or comments that you guys have or things challenges that you would put out to the leaders who are listening in on this conversation?
I hesitate to say anything, but I think, as a leader, and I talked to my sister and some of the experiences that she has, as we think about equity and sustainability and all these movements, I would be listening to all the voices and then not think that there's a monolithic voice for anybody, for any community, for any culture, and to make sure that, you know, diversity of thought is actually diversity of thought, and actions are actually diverse actions, and to really think what that means, and to not always put the burden of action on one particular group or one particular leader, or think that one particular leader or group has the answer, and to really do it as a community, and think and question what that community is, but do it as a community and as a collective thought, and not put all that pressure on it. I know, you know, I oftentimes am the only Black person in the room no matter where I go. And sometimes I'm okay with it, and sometimes I'm not okay with it. And I know going through this whole process with George Floyd and the politics of it all, and being at work, you know, at one point it became very overwhelming, and I didn't really want to come to work because I felt as though there was so much pressure to be a certain way. And I'm going, man, I've worked my whole life to be this guy in the room, and now I got to work harder to teach people how to be. And it was really awkward and frustrating and disheartening. But luckily enough for me, I have so many awesome people around me who are diverse and have diverse opinions that built me back up and gave me kind words and basically validated my existence. But I would just be careful about kind of where we go with this, and how we're talking and how we're communicating, and not making it so polarized, and actually being accepting of each other, you know, as a community.
Thanks, Lucious. I think that's a great way to end that one as well. I appreciate your voice in this conversation. And I really appreciate all of you. Liz, and I know you guys, and Lucious, I know you guys have small children. And so finding childcare to be with us this morning and being able to be free to actually have this conversation, I really appreciate it. Kevin and Katie, thank you for taking time to join us. I really, again, appreciate all that you are doing for our community. It's been really wonderful. I do want to answer a couple of you know, some folks had mentioned about, are there ways to keep this program free and open to all? Yes, we were planning the rest of this summer series to be free and virtual, because I don't think we can get more than 10 people in a room or 20 people in a room at this time, and that number may change and go down again. So the next breakfast is scheduled for July 22nd, and the last one is scheduled for August 26th. So mark those on your calendar. Same time, 9 to 10:30, and we'll get information out about those panels and the topics that we're going to be speaking on. We've kind of left them open because things are changing so rapidly and so often. There's no telling what the governor's going to say today at 3 p.m. So that may radically change where we go forward. But we do want to have honest, open conversations and keeping people informed about where our community is and where it's going. So we really appreciate that. Couple other things. Again, this was usually a moneymaker for a fundraiser for Leadership Asheville, and we are not doing it that way this year. We could certainly use help and support. If these conversations have been helpful to you, would love it if you know, you could donate. There's a way to do that on our website. If you just go to that leadershipasheville.unca.edu. And there's a button to donate up there. We would greatly appreciate that. Really, I do want to let you know that right now, the university is planning to open and have in-person classes for students starting August 10th. And Leadership Asheville is planning to run our 39th program next year, starting in September. We are taking applications for one more week. It closes next Tuesday, June 30th. And we would love to have you join us. If at all possible, we're going to make them in person. And if not, we will figure a way around that and maybe postpone some of them. But we would love to have you join us if you can. So please think about signing up. and joining the Leadership Asheville program, the flagship program. Great way to do that. Again, thanks to our co-presenting sponsors, Dixon Hughes Goodman and the Van Winkle Law Firm. Really appreciate their support. Our sustaining sponsors and community partners and our platinum sponsors. Thank you for your help in keeping us going and moving forward. With that, I'm going to say thanks again to our panel. You guys did a great job. Really appreciate you being here this morning. Thank you to all the attendees who were here and all the questions you wrote in. This session webinar has been recorded and will be downloaded and put on our website, hopefully in the next 24 hours. Sometimes it takes a little longer. The past 2 sessions have been recorded and they are on the website, so you can go back and view those if you're interested. With that, I'm going to say thank you guys. Have a great day. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Everybody.
Bye.